Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Casual Criminalist. As always, I'm your host, Simon. Welcome. Mary today has written me a script. Sabrina, the teenage murderess / victim. Is that a reference to Sabrina the Teenage Witch? That was a weird TV show. That was a really weird TV show. I remember it was on Disney Channel, and it's like, I mean, it was back in the day where you're a kid, you're just like, I guess I'll just watch whatever's on, and they're that weird talking cat that looks so fake. Oh, anyway, the format of the show, if you're new here, Mary's written me a script and never read it before. Let's dive in.
I don't know about this whole flying thing. Oh.
November the 16th, 2012. 911, what's your emergency? Ashley Onion, interesting surname, was at her desk at the call center. Given the nature of her job, predicting what was on the other end of the call was impossible. A hoax or a prank call. It hadn't been long after Halloween. Maybe an accident. Please, no, you're going to kill my mum, please. A call made during the most tragic day of someone's life. A young girl, sounding barely a teenager, screamed to someone in the background. It's a gut punch to anyone who hears it. What's going on? Hello? Ashley called over the line, trying to get the girl's attention back to her so that Ashley could send the help that was desperately needed. She's stabbing my mum with a knife. There was another blood-curdling, gut-twisting scream, and then, please, she's killing her, please. How Ashley kept her cool is a credit to her, and a mystery to me. Who has a knife? Ashley asked, looking to relay as much information as she can to the police officers she was dispatching. My sister and I just woke up because I heard yelling. The girl started to tell Ashley what had led to the call being made, but something happened, and chaos broke out over the line. There wasn't already chaos on the line. She's stabbing my mum. Sounds like chaos already. All right, just before we dive back into today's video, let me take a moment to thank today's fantastic sponsor, and that is Sheath Underwear, the brand that will absolutely change the way that you wear underwear. Look, if you've ever had those moments where it's like, it's so hot outside, and your boxers are a sauna, everything's sticking together, it's a bad time. I mean, for me, especially in the gym, well, in that case, Sheath is for you. It's underwear that actually keeps things organized and breathable. Sheath's boxer brief use a unique dual pouch design, so they basically keep everything where it belongs. There's no sticking, there's no shifting, just perfect comfort. You don't think about it. There's no awkward rearranging. It's just like, oh, look, everything's nicely in its right place. How great is that? And you know, you might be a little bit skeptical. I was at first, when I first started working with Sheath years ago now. I was like, guys, you're gonna have to send me this before I endorse it. And I tried it and I'm like, okay, now I fully get it. And gradually over time, my entire underwear drawer has just been replaced with Sheath stuff. Sometimes I'll just even be like, I don't know, don't even need the pockets there. You can just wear it normally. It's just like regular, just very nice quality underwear. Plus they've got bamboo and mesh options, so great for every season. And a new women's line. Plus, with Sheath's new winter designs rolling out and winter base layers back in stock, it's a great time to give them a try. So head over to sheathunderwear.com, grab the most comfortable underwear you'll ever wear, and use the promo code Criminalist to get 20% off your order. That's sheathunderwear.com, promo code Criminalist for 20% off. Thanks to Sheath for sponsoring, and now back to today's episode. The girl was screaming and crying, but it was impossible to understand. Terror, panic, and chaos were the only things heard. Ashley informed the police officers that they were being dispatched to a call reporting a female with a knife. It was all Ashley could confirm for them from the call. The poor girl who had called 911 was too distressed to provide more information, meaning Ashley had to gather what information she could and feed it back to the officers so they knew what they were walking into. Okay, this is your sister? Ashley asked the girl. Had Ashley really heard and understood the situation correctly? The caller's sister was attacking their mother? Oh, wait, that's not what I heard. I just thought that both of them woke up because of the yelling and someone else was stabbing them. But okay. The girl on the other end of the call started talking, but the distress in her voice made it difficult to hear what she was saying. She's doing what to your mum with a knife? Ashley asked. Was the mother or sister being threatened with a knife? Was she being hurt? I need you to take a deep breath from me so I can understand you. Ashley needed the girl to be calm enough to talk to so that Ashley could tell officers what they were going into and if they needed to escalate their response. If the girl took a deep breath and tried to calm herself, it was spent on a scream. There was more chaos and a desperate cry of please. A chill goes down the spine from that single plea. Ashley reacted swiftly. She responded to the officers and possibly her supervisor that she was going to look up the address history. If a mother and daughter were fighting and a knife was involved, this may not have been the first incident. Does your sister still have the knife? Ashley asked the girl, also thinking to try and get more information and possibly check that the girl hadn't been attacked too. Yeah, It was a surprisingly calm response, but it was a calm that was more chilling than the screams, a numb calm that was the other side of terror. One that shook. And what's going on there? Ashley had to keep her talking. She had to make sure the girl was all right, but she also had to find out what had happened. I don't know. I just woke up. The poor girl had woken up to the worst night of her life, and she still had the presence of mind to call for help. Ashley wasn't going to let this chance to talk to her go to waste. She was going to reassure the girl and get as much information as she could for the officers responding. Okay, who am I talking to now? Ashley asked. Simple questions with simple answers that would come out like a reflex. It may help the girl stay calm and focused and give Ashley the information she needed. Her daughter. The poor girl on the other end was so distressed she couldn't give her name, just her relation to the person she was calling for help for. Okay, what's going on there? Who has the knife? Ashley asked, her voice and words wavering, a sign that the girl's distress had got to her. How could it not? I think these 911 operators, don't they hear like horrible like this every day? That they'll just be like, okay, professional mode on, and then decompress later. My sister. The simple phrase was heartbreaking. The girl's tone was meek, exposing her for how young she was and how scared she was. Does she still have it? Ashley needed to know if the sister would be armed when the police arrived, but more importantly, she needed to know if the caller was in immediate danger of becoming a victim too. And as if fate decided to play a horrible joke on Ashley, the other end of the call erupted into screams and chaos yet again. Oh my God, my mum's going to die. The girl was terrified again. What's going on? Ashley may have been trying to sound calm, but the urgency wasn't kept out of her tone. She stabbed her, the girl cried. Her cries consumed whatever else she may have said. You're going to have to take a deep breath. I cannot understand you. It may seem like a careless comment, but Ashley needed the girl to talk. Stop! My mum's going to die! The girl wasn't speaking to Ashley. She was pleading with the attacker. Why is your mum going to die? What happened? Ashley tried a new tactic. Go with the flow of what the girl was saying. I don't know. It was a weak answer from the girl. She may have been close to disassociating, her mind shutting down to protect itself from the trauma of what she was witnessing, but Ashley needed her talking. If she was talking, Ashley knew the attacker hadn't turned on her. Is someone hurt? Ashley asked. Simple questions, yet again, yes and no answers. It would take time this way, but it would get the girl talking. It's like, is someone hurt? Did she say she's stabbing her mum to death? It's like, no, she's actually all right. It turns out it's just a scratch. It was a chilling statement to hear a young girl give, but the answer Ashley received, she's stabbing my mum. She stabbed your mum? Perhaps it was disbelief at the situation. Perhaps it was heartbreak that the girl was witnessing this, living the most tragic night of her life. Perhaps it was clarification that made Ashley repeat back what she'd just been told. Yeah. With that confirmation, Ashley reported to the responding officers that there were female with stab wounds on the scene. She then returned her attention to the girl. Is she breathing at all? There was hope that the stab wound was non-lethal. Perhaps it was to the leg or to the arm. Perhaps it was going to just be an injury, not a homicide. Perhaps it was going to be a worst-case scenario. Where is your sister? Ashley asked, hoping that the girl hadn't been attacked. Quick! The girl begged Ashley. I've got everyone coming to you, honey. Where is your sister? Ashley tried to reassure the girl. There were first responders on their way. Ashley could only hope to keep the girl on the line and safe until those responders arrived. There was more screaming on the other end of the call. By now it was so familiar that it was easy to tell it was the girl screaming. Oh my God, please stop. Now, the extract of the 911 call that we've just talked about took place within 2 minutes and 39 seconds. By the time the responding officers arrived at the address, 41-year-old Lisa Knoffel had passed from multiple knife wounds that she had sustained. The daughter had called 911, Megan Zanella, had witnessed the attack and was inconsolable. Lisa's youngest daughter, Haley Knoffel, was found in the closet of the master bedroom where the attack had taken place. She, too, had witnessed it. Sabrina Zunich was found with a ski mask, still holding the 15-inch knife used in the attack. So that's a big knife. That's like a kitchen knife. Meet the Knoffel family. The cliché of the great all-American family both applies here, and it also doesn't. The Knoffels were a happy bunch of 5. Lisa Knoffel, the family matriarch, was a social worker in the sex abuse department of the Cuyahoga County Department of Children and Family Services. Her husband, Kevin, was a truck driver and Lisa's second husband. There was also Megan Zanella, Lisa's daughter from her first marriage, who was 13 years old in November 2012. She was also the daughter who made the 911 call. In 2009, Lisa and Kevin had a daughter, Haley. And together, they all lived seemingly happily in a comfortable 3-bedroom house that sat upon an acre of land. In the garden was a playhouse, swings, a slide, a trampoline for the girls to play on. They were the family to go on camping trips with the families of their best friends. In fact, shortly before the night of November the 16th, 2012, the family had been on a camping trip with Kevin's best friend and his family. Kevin was the husband. Yes, okay. Lisa and Kevin were doting parents, doing all they could to provide the girls the best in life that they could. But you might now be thinking, we said a family of 5, but we just talked about only 4 of the members. And that's because the 5th member of the family needs a section all her own. Sister. The 5th member of the Knopfel family was Sabrina Zunich, the foster daughter of Lisa and Kevin Knopfel since July 2011 when she moved into their Willoughby Hills home. Good for them. Like fostering someone. Like my mum worked in social services in like the fostering department, and it's something I know it's not a perfect system, but I really admire people who take a kid that's not theirs and, do a good job. I don't know. These parents, these people seem like good people, the sort of place that would be nice to end up. Sabrina had a rough start in life. Between a neurodivergent mind and the environment she was brought into, the odds were stacked against her. Born outside of Cleveland, Ohio on October the 27th, 1994, Sabrina's first struggle in life was that her parents, Susan Edwards and Mark Zunich, weren't in the best state to be parents. See, after Susan Edwards had spent 6 months in the slammer for grand theft some 10 years before Sabrina was born, she hadn't pulled herself out of those bad habits. Indeed, bad habits. Oh yeah, what's your bad habit? I smoke. What's your bad habit? A little penchant for Grand Theft Auto. Instead, she got with Mark Zunich, who was a known drug dealer for teens in Cleveland. Ah yes, the lowest of the low drug dealers. Who do you do to? Oh, mostly children. On occasion, Mark Zunich was arrested for domestic violence against Susan Edwards. Wow, even more proof that he's a dickhead. And even after such an event, the two stayed together, doing nothing to kick the habits or the toxicity. I don't think being abused is a bad habit. That's just bad. Even though Mark's mother pleaded with him to seek help for his paranoid schizophrenia and his addictions, Mark refused to leave the substance-warped dance of life that he and Susan had spiraled into. Not even when the spiral got so warped that it was deemed better for their daughter Sabrina to be placed in the care of his mother. Sabrina wasn't even 4 years old when this happened. Honestly, that sounds like, I think children being removed from their parents should be a last-ditch thing, because I think it's really important for families to be together and for children to be around their parents, and I mean birth parents if possible, but I realize that's not always realistic. But when things are really bad, you gotta change the environment for the kid, otherwise it's just going to perpetuate that cycle of tuppedness. Many people have trinkets and keepsakes from their upbringing, hobbies, habits, and traditions. From her early years, Sabrina Zunich collected ADHD. What? Which she was diagnosed with when she was 4 years old. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. She's collecting disorders. ADHD, oppositional defiant disorder, bipolar disorder, anxiety and depression, receiving a diagnosis for the latter 4 as a teen. It feels a bit callous to say she collected these conditions. It sounds like she's really troubled and needs help. If you're like me and haven't heard of oppositional defiant disorder, don't worry, I looked it up. And if you have heard of it before and feel that my explaining will bore you, also don't worry, because I'll save you from skipping through the explanation. I've combined it with Sabrina's story to make it interesting. Well, thank you, Mary. That's a nice way to write. Oppositional defiant disorder is a condition that can be seen in nearly half of children and teens who have ADHD. Well, Sabrina Zunich was diagnosed with ADHD when she was 4 years old and oppositional defiant disorder when she was a teen. I think 4 years old is the youngest age that you could be diagnosed with ADHD. Right? Maybe according to that DSM or something? Because I've got friends of mine and they're like, dude, our kid, I mean, there's no question in our minds, in our doctor's minds, that he has like ADHD, that he is a wild kid who can't concentrate on anything. But apparently they can't get like an official diagnosis of it until he's like 4 years old or something, if I remember correctly. She was diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder when she was a teen. It has to make you wonder if it was the ADHD, the ODD, or a combination of the two that made it difficult for her to socialize with her young peers, and she was mislabeled as an unruly child in school because of the late diagnosis of her ODD. I mean, I don't think that's being mislabeled. Someone can be an unruly child because of their mental conditions. It doesn't, I imagine that someone with untreated ADHD and ODD is going to be an unruly person. And that's why they need enter treatment. in my opinion. Looking at Sabrina's life before moving in with an awful family, in my opinion, as someone who's not a qualified psychologist or counselor but good at research, could be seen as a textbook case. ODD can be developed as a result of genetics or through the shaping of the environment they're exposed to. With Mark Zunich, her father, having paranoid schizophrenia, there is the potential that that branch of the family tree could have been prone to mental health issues and disorders. However, Sabrina had a rough start in life, so she could have developed ODD as a result. And in my opinion, as not a psychologist or anything like that, and just, I don't know, done a lot of casual criminalists, this is always almost always a combination of genes and environment. So yeah, she's probably got some of this propensity for these things from her father, but also she's grown up in an environment which is going to foster those things. There are 4 main risk factors for developing ODD. Whilst not everyone who experiences these elements in their childhood will develop ODD, most children and teens who have ODD have experienced these elements. Temperament. A child who has a temperament that includes difficulty regulating emotions, such as being highly emotionally reactive to situations or having trouble tolerating frustration. Well, Sabrina had a history of lashing out, as seen in her school record from Wycliffe High School. She would often be in trouble and separated from her peers at school for starting and getting into fistfights, holy shit, as well as having to be disciplined for other behavioral issues. Parenting issues. A child who experiences abuse or neglect, harsh or inconsistent discipline, or lack of parental supervision. Now, there's no confirmation of abuse or neglect, but one could speculate that there was an element of Sabrina's parents being absent, if not physically to serve a jail sentence, then figuratively as they were around, just high or drunk. Yeah, like ignoring your kids is basically like not being there. I'm terrible with this. No hiding it. I'm pretty addicted to my phone. Like, I'll be on there checking my work emails, replying to things. I'll be on Slack. I'll be on WhatsApp, just replying to things. Like, I don't know, I'm a little bit of a work addict. But when I'm playing with my kids, I make an active effort to, like, put the phone face down. Don't use it. At least just give them some of your time. They'll like it. On the plus side, I'm not high or drunk around them most of the time. All the neglect could have come from the fact that she felt neglected by her parents after she was removed from their care and placed with her paternal grandmother. We can confirm that Sabrina was also taken from her grandmother and placed with the Emma Cayley receiving home when she was just 14 years old, although the exact reason for this wasn't obvious. But even before being taken into the group home, Sabrina spent 2 years being bounced around the foster system. It's definitely safe to say that Sabrina did not receive consistent parental supervision. Other family issues is another factor. Quoting again, a child who lives with a parent or parents of a family discord or has a parent with mental health or substance use disorder. Well, okay, she's got both of those, doesn't she? Sabrina checked this box twice. Indeed, both of her parents had an unhealthy relationship with substances and alcohol, and her father had paranoid schizophrenia. I would like to make this clear. Mark Zunich was not a bad father because he had schizophrenia. He was a bad father because he abused Sabrina's mother at least once and refused to get help for either his schizophrenia or his substance and alcohol abuse, leaving the two issues to exacerbate each other. Yes. The second check was that at 4, she was placed into her paternal grandmother's care. 10 years later, she was moved to a group home. And for 2 years after that, she was in and out of foster care. Not exactly the elements of a harmonious upbringing. No, this is a great way to screw someone up who already has a propensity for getting screwed up. Environment's another factor. To quote again, oppositional and defiant behaviors can be strengthened and reinforced through attention from peers and inconsistent discipline from other authority figures such as teachers. In my opinion, based on my research, big check on this point. I feel like it can be hard, like with kids, like as a parent, to be like, oh yeah, you got to be consistent with discipline. You can't confuse them with telling them what's right and wrong. And I'm bad at this because sometimes I'll just be like, oh, for God's sake. And then other times I'll just be more chill. And it's like, you got to be consistent, Simon, get it together. But with teachers, I feel like they should have more professional detachment than like a parent who's frustrated. Like, they're trained for this stuff, especially dealing with younger children. I guess these are like teenagers as well, right? They can be difficult. I would not want to be a teacher of teenagers. My sister and my brother-in-law are teachers, and I'm like, I mean, it's an important job and all of that, but I don't envy teaching. I really don't. There's a record of Sabrina receiving disciplinaries at school, such as she did at Wycliffe High School, but no record that I could find of what her home life was like. So there's an argument to be made that Sabrina experienced inconsistent discipline from authority figures other than her parents or guardians. Behaviors caused by, I don't think we can necessarily draw inconsistent discipline from the fact that she was disciplined. I don't see the connection there personally, Mary. But maybe that's just me. Listeners, feel free to disagree. Behaviors caused by ODD can include the individual having issues with their family, their peers, and social life, and at school. And Sabrina Zunich was no exception to this rule. She struggled to get along with her peers, getting into fistfights more times than she got into conversations with them. Academically, she was struggling to achieve even average grades, and by the time she was 14, she had little to no contact with her family, instead moving about the foster care system. As well as having a background that was ripe for the development of ODD, Sabrina Zunich also suffered the effects of ODD. Her poor school performance, her poor impulse control, shown in how quickly disagreements and frustrations would turn into physical fights, and her antisocial behavior, leading her to be isolated both literally and socially from her peers. She couldn't play nice, so she was separated. But her behavior, it can easily be imagined, meant that friends were hard to come by. She also developed anxiety and depression as a result. That's one thing I have. I can have a little temper. It's definitely mellowed as I've got older, but it always caps off at some point. I'm going to be like, oh, for God's sake. But I'd never been in a fist fight. I'm never going to fight anyone over something like that. I'll just be like, nah, I'm just not going to engage. This has gone too far. I'm not engaging, thank you.
Strike, scream, and run. All right, let's try it.
Then there was the bipolar disorder diagnosis that Sabrina received when she was a teenager. Now, bipolar is a type of depression that has two sides or poles to it, the highs and the lows. The highs are the mania, times of elation, great joy, strong confidence and irritability. The lows are the depression, and the depression is a deep pit. With the irritability dialed up to 11 during a manic period and ODD making her act on that irritability, it's no mystery why Sabrina Zunich was known to throw hands. And that was all in the file of Sabrina Zunich that was picked up and read by Lisa Knoffel. As a social worker for the Cuyahoga County Children's and Family Services, Lisa knew that there were children who were in desperate need of love, understanding, and safety. Lisa worked in the sex abuse department, so she was well aware of what some children had gone through, and she cared, so much so that she wanted to do more than her job. Knowing that she and Kevin could, Lisa wanted to take Sabrina in. Oh, I didn't tie that together. The mother works in social services, and she's taking in a kid. God damn, good for you. And give her a fair shot with a stable home life, support from adults who wanted nothing but the best for her, and two sisters who would look at her as a big sister. That is a very nice dream that you're having, that I really hope works out, but I know doesn't. So, in July 2011, the then 16-year-old Sabrina Zunich moved in with an Knoffel family, and Sabrina Zunich thrived. It was really looking like Lisa and Kevin Knoffel taking Sabrina Zunich in was going to be a success story. Very quickly, Sabrina started to fit into the family, Megan and Haley taking a liking to her as a big sister. And the girls would spend hours playing together outside, on the swings, in the playhouse, on the slide and trampoline, bringing all three girls hours of entertainment as they bonded. This sounds awesome. I wish we could end today's episode here. It'd be like, and everyone lived happily ever after. Sabrina got over her she got medicated, she got treatment, and she went on to be, she became a NASA astronaut, which is quite impressive. But that's not what happened, so let's continue and crush our dreams. Academically, the tables were turning. Still attending Wycliffe High School, no longer was it a struggle for Sabrina to even reach average grades in her class. No longer were average grades the standard to meet, but rather a standard Sabrina exceeded. Her grades weren't the only thing improving at school either, so was Sabrina's behavior. Being separated from her classmates during breaks were punishments of the past. All punishments before behavior were a thing of the past. There was no need for it anymore. Sabrina had become a good student, and she was socializing with her classmates, not fighting them. And all of this change was noticeable by December 2011, a mere 5 months after Sabrina had been taken in by the Knoffel family. Oh my god, I don't want this to change. This is such a success story. There was just one little crack. While Sabrina Zunich bonded with her new younger sisters, thrived at school, and started making friends, she was clashing with her foster parents. I say her foster parents, but Sabrina was actually just butting heads with Lisa. The main point of contention, Sabrina Zunich felt that Lisa and Kevin Knoffel favored Megan and Haley over Sabrina. Yeah, Sabrina, I got some news. As much as it would be awesome for them to not favor their own kids who they've obviously known for longer and raised from being babies, and as much as they try to hide that, it's going to be really hard for them not to. And as a parent, imagining this situation, I mean, it's really good that you've taken someone in, but to expect, God, it's going to be really hard to love that person as much as your own kids. I'm just being honest. According to Sabrina, the solution to this problem was that whilst Lisa tended to Megan and Haley, Sabrina could go to Kevin for anything she needed. And whilst it's incredibly difficult to verify if that was indeed the agreement that was reached, it's very easy to verify that Sabrina Zunich became close with her foster father, Kevin Knoffel. I'm like, this is where it all goes wrong. I'm like, this is nice that they divided that. And there's that little inkling in the back of my mind being like, oh, don't go there, don't go there, don't go there. And the next two words are inappropriately close. Thanks for ruining it, Mary. I know you did ruin it, Mary, but like, goddamn, it was going so well. Foster daddy is an issue. Oh, here we go. Yes, you heard that right. I said inappropriately close. It didn't start as inappropriate from the get-go. No, Kevin took his time. He had her trust in him as a guardian. After all, he was her foster father, but he slowly built up her trust so that she would see him in a different light for all of his depraved benefit. Oh, fuck you, Kevin. What the fuck? Claiming that he was trying to make the then 17-year-old Sabrina Zunich feel more included, the 41-year-old Kevin Knoffel would take her out and about. Just her and him spending time together. I guess manipulation works if the target is isolated. This could be fine. If you were a normal fucking human being, Kevin, and just being a nice person trying to turn someone's life around, this could be fine. And instead, you're going to make it fucking weird. Like, I would... That seems fine. It's not manipulative at all. But unless you have the wider context, which I imagine we're about to get. The next escalation of the manipulation was Kevin Knoffel using his job as a means to get what he wanted from Sabrina Zunich. See, Kevin claimed that because of his job as a truck driver, he would get cramps in his legs. Oh God, I don't want to go here. And because I don't trust a word from his mouth, I took to Google to verify this. And yes, I did have to Google it instead of referring to experience, because the only license I have is for a motorcycle. I don't drive. Anyway, I didn't have to go into the Google search far to confirm that yes, sitting and driving long distances can cause cramps, especially in one leg, because of the small movements of using the pedals. Yes, okay, getting cramps in your legs as a truck driver is fine. It could be expected. But not what I imagine is coming next. So Kevin Knoffel was probably suffering from cramps in his legs sometimes. I'll give him that, but he did not need his 17-year-old foster daughter to even touch his legs to help with his cramps. And then, because that wasn't depraved enough, over time, it progressed to not just his thighs that she would touch. Again, Sabrina was his 17-year-old foster daughter and he was 41. I'm 30. I don't need to say why this is f***ed up. Why do I need to... I don't need to explain this. This is obviously incredibly f***ed up. By March 2012, things had gotten even more inappropriate between Kevin and Sabrina. There was a full sexual element to the inappropriate relationship between them. Kevin Knoffel and Sabrina Zunich were, by March 2012, having what they believed was a secret affair, laughing at how they thought they were getting away with it, and how they believed Lisa Knoffel was oblivious to their betrayal, believing that Kevin was spending so much time with Sabrina to help her adjust to her new family life. Yeah, which is what you'd assume if Kevin wasn't a complete piece of shit. Kevin Knoffel by this time carried pictures of Sabrina Zunich in his wallet, which he had paid for him to look at while he was away for work. Sabrina Zunich had fallen hook, line, and sinker for the fairy tale life Kevin Knoffel had sold her. Kevin would divorce Lisa, he could be with Sabrina, and they could raise his daughter, Haley, together. Oh, for f***'s sake. However, the affair wasn't as secret as they thought. Friends and family started to notice the change in dynamics. By the summer of 2012, Lisa and Kevin were fighting, and Lisa Knoffel and Sabrina Zunich were still butting heads, and Kevin and Sabrina were only getting more involved in the sick illusion of a romance. Friends noticed that Kevin and Sabrina were close, but not in a way that was comfortable. They didn't act like father and daughter. They were too friendly. They were too close. They would make sexual joke towards each other, recalls Autumn Pavlik, a school friend of Sabrina's. Make a note of that name because it comes up later. Having spent the summer of 2012 thinking she had been subtly sneaking around with Kevin Knoffel and butting heads with Lisa Knoffel, in the fall of 2012, Sabrina switched schools, moving from Wycliffe High School to Willoughby South High. Speaking of school, it became a habit that Kevin Knoffel would drive Sabrina Zunich to school, and on the way, they would have relations and then go about their days. On October the 27th, 2012, Sabrina Zunich was turning 18 and became a legal adult. As a legal adult, she would be able to leave the foster care system and could choose to leave the Knoffel family home. Except Sabrina Zunich didn't want to leave the Knoffel family. And so, in the same October that she turned 18, she petitioned the courts to allow her to stay with the Knoffel family, saying that she wanted to finish school before she left them. Wait, why does she have to petition the courts to do this? She's an adult, they're adults. she can make her own decisions. And if they'll have her, it'd be like she's just a guest in their house in a way, right? And there were legitimate reasons to let her stay in the care of Kevin and Lisa Knothel. Sure, they were butting heads, but Sabrina Zunich was now thriving at school. She was never late to school, she participated in classes, and she was speaking to her teachers about going to cosmetology school once she graduated high school. Cosmetology could either be, in my mind, I was like, oh, she's going to go study space. But I think that probably means cosmetics more, right? Astronomy would be space. Cosmology? But for every positive point there was to Sabrina staying with an awful family, there was a darker reason that ran parallel. Sabrina was never late to school, despite her and Kevin's inappropriate relations on the way. Sabrina was participating in classes and was still clashing with Lisa Knothel. Sabrina was talking to her teachers about going to cosmetology school after she graduated high school, just like she was talking to Kevin about replacing Lisa as Hayley's mother figure and Kevin's partner. By the time Sabrina Zunich had successfully petitioned the court to let her stay with an awful family after she turned 18, Lisa Knothel had become suspicious of the dynamic between Sabrina and Kevin, and it appeared to show, with Sabrina stating she wanted me out after it all went down. Other twisted minds may have been satisfied with this result, but Kevin wasn't fully satisfied. The limit of Kevin Knothel's depravity had not yet been reached. The betrayal of Lisa Knothel. In the summer of 2012, Kevin had accomplished the first part of his sick plan. He had managed to groom a then 17-year-old Sabrina Zunich, manipulating her into becoming his lover. And by lover, we mean victim. In the summer, with Sabrina playing the role of his lover, he moved on to the next part of his sick plan. It wasn't a secret that Lisa and Kevin were fighting. Kevin even contributed to the spreading of this information, telling his friends that not only were he and Lisa fighting, but a divorce was looking like a likely outcome. And as he spoke of these fights to friends, almost as if he was preparing them for Kevin being without Lisa, Kevin spoke to Sabrina of his divorce from Lisa and his plans to have Sabrina as his partner, and they could raise Hayley, his 3-year-old daughter, together, always placing Sabrina as a mother figure to Hayley. After months of manipulating Sabrina Zunich into believing that she was his lover, Kevin Knothel started planting the seeds for his next manipulation. It only spurred him on that he and Lisa were fighting and others knew about the fights. In fact, he just used the fights to further manipulate Sabrina. Kevin started telling Sabrina that the fights he was having with Lisa were getting bad, and in truth, Lisa would be worth more dead than she would be divorced. Oh, he's gonna get her to... I did not expect that. He's gonna manipulate her into fucking killing her. Holy shit. And on top of Lisa being worth more if she were dead than if Lisa and Kevin were to merely divorce, Lisa would most likely get custody of Hayley, and Kevin did not want to split custody. Kevin wanted full custody of he and Lisa's 3-year-old daughter. Well, in that case, there's nothing left for it, is it, Kevin? You must kill her. What the dude? And so in early October 2012, Sabrina Zunich went to school and met up with her friend Autumn Pavlik. Do you remember her? I mentioned her earlier. She was one of the friends who noticed the unhealthy and unnatural dynamic between Kevin and Sabrina. Anyway, in October 2012, a conversation happened between the girls that Autumn would never forget. She asked me if I were able to get her a hitman, Autumn would later tell a court. She said they, Kevin and Lisa, were going to get a divorce, and she was worth more dead than alive. Autumn did what any decent person would do, told her friend that was not an option Sabrina wanted to contemplate, and Autumn backed away from the conversation, possibly thinking that Sabrina was being dramatic and that common sensibilities would take over, and the conversation would be nothing more than a memory of a cringy conversation from their teenage years. Yeah, I was kind of thinking, wait a minute, shouldn't have Autumn gone to the police? But really, this is probably, in her mind, just teenage cringe. And I kind of think that that's okay, thinking it's teenage cringe. If this is an adult, you should probably go to the police. If someone's like really asking you whether you know a hitman, it's probably a good idea to grass on your friend so someone doesn't get fucking murdered. But when it's just teenagers, you'd just be like, dude, don't be cringe. Where did Sabrina get the idea that Lisa was worth more alive than dead? Oh, I don't know, Mary, maybe Kevin told her. Well, Kevin told Sabrina about the life insurance money that would come through should Lisa face a tragic fate. He adapted his original fairy tale that he told her from him divorcing Lisa, Sabrina becoming his partner, and they'd live happily ever after with Sabrina being a mother figure. The life insurance policy was worth nearly $800,000. Despite his newest edit to this twisted fairy tale, Sabrina fell in love more with this version, and this led Sabrina to approach Autumn about trying to find a hitman who would be willing to take Lisa out of the picture. Why is she just going to her friend Autumn, like just a random friend from school?
Hey Autumn, you know any hitmen? You know anyone who murder people for money, Autumn?
What? So while Sabrina was asking her friends about hitmen, Kevin put himself in contact with Sabrina's social worker. He explained to the social worker that he and Lisa were contemplating a divorce, and he wanted to know whether, should they divorce, could Sabrina stay in his care afterwards. For reasons I'm about to explain, the answer to the question is irrelevant. Well, probably because Sabrina's an adult, right? She can make her own decisions. But don't you find it interesting that Kevin appears to be very invested in having Sabrina and Haley Knoffel in his care, but didn't seem to care about what happened to Megan Zanella? Was it because Haley was the 3-year-old daughter Lisa had with Kevin, and Sabrina was his current victim of manipulation, whereas Megan was just Lisa's daughter from a first marriage? Yeah, Mary Rice just wondering. I'm going to assume, unless there's another explanation, that's the reason. It doesn't seem mysterious. And speaking of Sabrina being a victim of Kevin's manipulations, there was one morning Kevin pulled out a manipulation tactic that was very 2012. It was a very emo boyfriend trying to stop the girl breaking up with him sort of thing. On the way to drop Sabrina off at school, he pulled over like he had many times before. Instead of getting inappropriately acquainted with his foster daughter, like he frequently had before, he started crying, telling Sabrina that he and Lisa had had a terrible fight the night before, and he was going to take himself out if Lisa wasn't dead soon. Oh my lord. Quoting Sabrina here, "I was scared for him because I had fallen in love with him." She said this at court as an explanation for her response to Kevin's latest manipulation. Not that she called it that. Sabrina fell for his manipulation and told Kevin that she would kill Lisa herself. And so, probably with minimal effort going into pretending to be surprised Sabrina would go to such lengths for him, Kevin started coaching Sabrina to become the assassin of Lisa. The plan was simple. Well, actually, no, it wasn't. The plan was a stupid and overused cover story that had been offered up as a theory and disproved time and time again. It makes you wonder if Kevin ever watched a true crime show and realized how dumb his plan was. Yeah, if you're going to be committing crimes, make sure you bone up on crime. Like, get really acquainted with how crime works. Or did he know it's a cover story that is debunked frequently, but he had so much of an ego that he thought he'd be the one to get away with it? Either way, the plan Kevin Knoffel started explaining to Sabrina was that she would stab Lisa to death and stage it as a burglary gone wrong. And if Sabrina raised the issue of being caught, Kevin would brush her worries off and tell her that she was to play up her mental health issues, pretend she remembered nothing, and she would only serve a few years because of those factors and her age, and then they could live happily ever after once she was released. And whilst the planning behind the staging seemed shoddy, the directions and coaching Kevin Knoffel gave Sabrina on how to stab Lisa were anything but shoddy. He got pretty specific with what Sabrina needed to do. On November the 16th, 2012, Kevin left for work. He had a job that would mean he was driving overnight, taking her from Ohio to Michigan and possibly further. The day unfolded like any other Friday. The girls went to school, Lisa went to work. They came home, Megan and Sabrina did their homework, everyone ate supper, Sabrina spending lots of time on her phone, and then they all went to bed. And then, 2012, lots of time on the phone. I guess this was like early smartphone days. Although, yeah, to be fair, like growing up, my sisters had mobile phones. I don't know, I was never like as addicted to it. I think boys, like at least when I was growing up, were less on cell phones messaging each other than girls were. But yeah, my sisters spent a long time texting on their phones. I remember that Nokia 3310 or whatever it was, and it's just like they're blazing their fingers over those numbers, and I'd just be like, bup, 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 bup. And then Megan Zanella woke up yelling. If she was struggling to fully comprehend what she was hearing due to the fog of sleep still looming over her, the fog disappeared as she beheld the scene before her as she walked into her mother's room. Lisa was lying in her bed, Sabrina on top of her, knife in hand, letting loose all the anger she felt. Megan tried to stop Sabrina from attacking her mother by jumping on Sabrina, but the older girl just shoved Megan off and continued to beat and stab Lisa, who was fighting back. And that was when Megan made the 911 call that you heard part of at the beginning. Megan begging Sabrina to stop attacking Lisa, but also trying to get help as quickly as she could. When the officers had been dispatched to the Knoffel household, they came upon a tragic scene. 13-year-old Megan was inconsolable. 3-year-old Haley was hidden in the closet of the master bedroom, the body of a now deceased Lisa on the bed of the master bedroom, and Sabrina donning a ski mask and holding a 15-inch long knife. Sabrina was taken into custody, and Kevin, as the husband and next of kin to Lisa and guardian to the children, was called by authorities. Kevin had been on the road in Michigan when he got the call and immediately turned around and made his way back home. Although it seemed like an open and shut case, Sabrina having been found with a knife and literally blood on her, an investigation was launched into the murder of 41-year-old Lisa. One of the notes made at the family home, now turned crime scene, was that when he arrived and was informed of the murder of his wife and the arrest of his foster daughter for said murder, Kevin was less upset or distressed, but rather relatively calm and more curious about what had happened. Kevin just rolls up. Hello there. What's going on here then? Kevin, at least you could act a little bit better. You could act like they expect you to act, Kevin. Apart from noting how Kevin was acting, other elements of the investigation that happened at night were the 15-inch long knife with 9-inch blade that had been used in the murder was bagged and logged as evidence, a note being made that the attack had been so brutal that the blade was bent. The ski mask that Sabrina had been wearing was bagged up and logged as evidence. The bedroom in particular was taped off as it was an active crime scene, and forensics and evidence photos were being taken. Lisa's body was moved and taken for an autopsy, and it was determined by the Lake County Coroner's Office that Lisa had suffered 178 stab wounds, including stabbings, cutting, and complex wounds to her head, neck, and torso, as well as to her extremities. So basically, she stabbed her everywhere. The wounds to her extremities were evidence that Lisa had fought back against Sabrina. Complex wounds is a new phrase to me, so I looked it up. If anyone wondering, it refers to the fact that the knife was twisted whilst inside. Oh my god, I did not need to know that, Mary. As I mentioned earlier, Sabrina was found at the house when the responding officers arrived and was taken into custody. Although you would have expected her to be carted off to the station, Sabrina was taken to and spent 10 hours at the hospital receiving treatment while in police custody. Sabrina in a state of shock when the officers arrived and had suffered several knife wounds herself for her attack on Lisa. I wouldn't expect her to be taken to the police station immediately. I'd expect her to be arrested immediately, but if she needs medical treatment, it doesn't matter if she's a murderer or not, she needs medical treatment. Breaking the spell. After spending 10 hours at the hospital to have her knife wounds tended to, Sabrina was taken into an interview room with 3 investigators who had one job: get her statement on the events that had taken place on November the 16th, 2012, to then consider against the evidence and other statements that were being gathered. And as much as it was seemingly an open and shut case, Sabrina seemed determined to deny the investigators any cooperation. Honestly, I considered giving a more in-depth breakdown of the interview with Sabrina, and I actually started typing it out. Then I thought better of it because the first police interview was a waste of time, and so I would be writing up a breakdown of the interview. I will, however, give you the bullet points. The investigators started off pretty gentle, reintroducing themselves to her, then reading her rights, asking her to initial and sign to confirm that she had been informed of her rights and understood them. It was at this point that Sabrina decided to show that teenage sass comes out to play even in a state of shock and suffering amnesia by holding her bandaged hands up before dropping them to her side. And whilst one of the investigators initialed the paperwork for her, she signed the paperwork after another pointed out that she could sign it in the same way she had signed her discharge papers at the hospital. Yes, she really signed paperwork in front of them, then tried to pretend she couldn't. And I hope Simon manages to convey that I had put amnesia in inverted commas. It wasn't real. It was part of the plan Kevin and Sabrina had cooked up. Yeah, no, I think people understood that. Sabrina was asked what she recalled from November the 16th, and she told them that she had come home from school, done her homework, helped out around the house, and then went back to her homework. She claimed she had got a headache and had gone through the bathroom attached to Lisa and Kevin's bedroom to get some medication for that headache. And that was until she came through in the ambulance. She claimed that she didn't know how she'd cut her hands or why she was covered in blood. This was a story she didn't simply double down on, she triple and quadruple down on it every time she was asked about it. Well, yeah, you gotta stick to your story. Despite getting confused about the details when the detectives asked her about things out of chronological order. And if the investigators didn't know about Kevin Knopfels' relatively calm reaction to news that his wife had been murdered and suspecting something from that, alarm bells would be blaring about it when they did hear about it, having heard how much detail Sabrina could go into about his work and daily routine. Yeah, they'll be like, something weird is going on here.
There's something going on around here that just don't add up.
Especially when it got to how much she could go into about Lisa's work and daily routine. That could be summed up in 2 phrases: I don't know, and I guess. It's not evidence of anything, but it would definitely make someone ask more questions, wouldn't it? And Sabrina did not speak kindly about Lisa or Megan. There was always a jab at Megan, saying she was mentally unstable, but Lisa got the full works. They never got along. Lisa wanted Sabrina out, would lay hands on Sabrina, and sent a lot of mental abuse towards her. Not the most flattering light, nor an accurate painting of their characters. Then the investigators asked how Sabrina felt about Lisa Knothall not being alive anymore, and her tune changed from slagging off Lisa to switching on the waterworks. It was a decent performance, it was almost believable, but not quite when the investigators had already heard the 911 call Megan had made and knew that responding officers had seen Sabrina come out of the master bedroom with a knife and with guns drawn and ordered her to the ground before arresting her and sending her to the hospital for the injuries she sustained while attacking Lisa. It was then that investigators explained that she was under arrest for the murder of Lisa. They took another crack at trying to get her to tell the truth about what had happened, but she refused, leaving them no choice but to explain what would happen next. And Sabrina Zunich went to be remanded at Lake County Jail. It was also revealed during this interview that both Megan and Haley had been in the master bedroom when the attack happened, witnessing Sabrina murder Lisa. Haley and Kevin were with someone else at the time of the interview, and Megan Zanella was with her father. On the home front, on November the 17th, a day after the murder, eyebrows rose and nervous glances were being exchanged behind the back of Kevin Knothall. Family friends had come together to see what support they could offer the man who recently lost his wife and who had to face reality that his foster daughter was most likely responsible. The thing about grief is that everyone expresses it differently. Some people try to carry on with life like normal until the grief can no longer be ignored. Some never fully stop grieving. Others will immediately start the 5 stages of grief and eventually build a new norm. For others, grief dresses up as anger. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that grief dresses up as anger. I mean, I've had, grief. I've had people die. And, yeah, I think you just have the 5 stages that everyone goes through, right? Maybe anger at the beginning. Wait, isn't anger one of the stages of grief? Denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance? Isn't that, I feel like there's one step I'm missing. Oh, doesn't matter, let's carry on. Maybe depression. Did I miss depression? Bargaining, depression, acceptance. Maybe? When it came to Kevin, it didn't look like grief had shown up yet. His best friend of 16 years, David Strunk, noticed that Kevin wasn't disturbed by the crime scene in his house. Instead, curiosity was getting better of Kevin, having him stand on the threshold of the crime scene, peering around like a nosy neighbor would peer through the window at a slight disturbance. He didn't want the door to the master bedroom closed. He wanted a good look inside. Strange and aloof were the words used to describe Kevin's behavior at the house. And then he made a request of his best friend, who had confusion and suspicion rushing to the front of his mind the moment he heard that request. Kevin asked David to drive him to Lake County Jail so that he could see Sabrina. "I found it weird that he would want anything to do with the person who murdered his wife," David would later recall. The request had David Strunk question everything he knew. He knew that had he been in Kevin's place, the last thing he would want to do is see the person who was strongly believed to have murdered his wife. Even if it was his foster daughter. Regardless of how much support Kevin claimed Sabrina would need, the request and reason didn't resonate with David. I'm surprised he wanted any contact with her, but Kevin said he wanted to let Sabrina know he hadn't given up on her. Nonetheless, David Strunk drove Kevin Knothall to Lake County Jail and, along with correctional officers, witnessed Kevin become irritated when he was told that he could not see Sabrina and was turned away. It was after witnessing this that David put some serious consideration behind an idea that had been floating around for a while, except it had been something that Kevin had claimed Lisa had accused him of. What was this idea that David had been trying to ignore as he tried to support his best friend of 16 years through this tragic time? It's that Kevin and Sabrina's relationship wasn't that of a foster father and foster daughter, but rather something more inappropriate, and he asked Kevin if this was the case. Kevin never answered the question, but would rather change the topic of conversation. Like he couldn't deny it, but he couldn't afford to admit it either. And this was something that nagged at David for a while after, more so as he witnessed Kevin pack up all of Lisa's clothing and give it to Goodwill within months, if not weeks, of her death. Kevin wasn't just getting rid of her clothes either. Just about all of Lisa's bedroom furniture was posted for sale on Craigslist. Kevin couldn't get rid of it fast enough, it seemed. And whilst Kevin collected the payouts from the 2 life insurance policies he had taken out on Lisa, he then 2 life insurance policies. More than 1 life insurance policy is suspicious. Look into when those were taken out. Have you not listened to any true crime shows, Kevin? He then started remodeling the house, putting in a pool, buying an expensive car and a new house in Florida, and he started flying lessons. He was clueless about the events happening out of his sight. David, best friend to Kevin for 16 years, was starting to piece things together. Just before the murder, they had been on a family camping trip, and it was there that David heard a mention of Kevin and Sabrina having an inappropriate affair from Kevin himself, no less. He said that Lisa had made a comment to him that she thought he had been messing around with Sabrina. I was in shock and disbelief. I almost laughed it off. Kevin told me that he was considering divorce. David's drunk. We'd later testify to this. So he wasn't the only one who questioned the relationship dynamic between Kevin and Sabrina. Lisa had too. And he knew that Kevin and Lisa were having issues in their marriage, as Kevin had mentioned them fighting and thinking about getting a divorce. Then again, on that same camping trip, Kevin had shown David Strunk some pictures that Kevin had paid for of Sabrina, pictures that he kept in his wallet, claiming that she wanted to try being a model, and this was him helping her. Oh, by the way, Kevin had changed the underwear he was wearing. Sabrina had said she'd be more comfortable in the type he was wearing on the camping trip. What? Add on the way that Kevin had wanted to see Sabrina, even though she was in custody for the murder of Lisa, and how Kevin had gotten irritated when he couldn't see her. Well, how could David sit by with these suspicions without talking to investigators? Yeah, it's like, this is your best friend of 16 years. But this is so serious. This is such a horrible position to be in. In the meantime, those investigators have been building their case against Sabrina. Yes, the officers responding to 911 had found her coming out of the master bedroom with a bloody knife and with guns drawn, told her to drop the knife and get down on the ground before arresting her, and then sent her to get her wounds seen to. But that didn't mean that all the work was done. A jury would want a motive, and Sabrina Zunich's record of having mental health issues was an element that could complicate their case. So, they built their case against her. They ignored the nagging suspicion that this was more than a case of a teenager attacking her foster mother because of built-up anger and a rocky relationship. And having spoken to Sabrina and other friends of the family, probably David included, investigators wanted to talk to Kevin. Why wouldn't they want to talk to him? He seemed very not upset by the death of his wife, and then he wanted to see Sabrina soon after the murder. Then all of this led to speculation over his dynamic with Sabrina. So they called in Kevin Knoffel, claiming to want to talk to him about Lisa's work, and Kevin Knoffel came to them, but he didn't come alone. He came with a lawyer. I mean, like, whatever we think about Kevin being an absolute douchebag, he has made the correct decision by arriving with a lawyer. A lawyer who was not about to let investigators have an easy interview. When the investigators asked if Kevin knew what happened at the house before he left, Kevin made a move like he was about to answer, but his lawyer got his bit in first. Yeah, the lawyer's like, you shut your mouth. Which is why you get a lawyer. Innocent, guilty, somewhere in between, get a fucking lawyer. You think you're a witness? Get a lawyer. Well, hang on a second. We just talked about his wife's work. What's going on at the house before is not his wife's work. Geez, this lawyer was paid by the word and given a bonus for sentences that he had to read twice to understand. The investigators backed off, going back to basic questions about Lisa and her work. Where did she work, for example? Cuyahoga County Children and Family Services. Kevin looked nervous, but maybe he was focusing on not butchering that mouthful of an employer. Yes, quite happy I managed to get that out in one go, actually. What did she do there? She was a social worker for the Children's Sex Abuse Unit. Again, Kevin looked nervous, and he didn't look at investigators either. Were you and Lisa in the process of going through a divorce? One of the investigators tried to slip in a question about the state of Lisa and Kevin's marriage, but the lawyer wasn't having it. Again, excellent lawyering. Okay, now we're going outside the scope, said the lawyer. Apparently the lawyer could make simple, clear sentences after all, and sure, the investigators didn't get answers to the questions they wanted to ask, but Kevin didn't walk away from that interview and leave them with nothing to work with. The investigators had noticed how he was particularly nervous when they mentioned the murder, and he had looked at the floor more than he had looked at them. I mean, well, yeah, because what? This doesn't seem particularly revelatory. Like, if you're innocent or guilty and people are asking you about your wife's work, you'd be like, yeah, she does this. And then they'd be like, what about her murder? You'd be like, oh, gonna get a bit more nervous there because we're talking about murder that you might be thinking I did. Of course he's gonna be more nervous. And the fact that it brought a lawyer, seemingly for the sole purpose of making sure the interview stayed focused on Lisa's work, made them uncomfortable. Really? They're not used to people having lawyers. They're like, whoa, dude, this dude actually got a lawyer? What a big brain. Holy shit. Most people just don't. And then we get them easy, dude. Kevin wasn't the only one giving away secrets without knowing, though. A social worker who had worked with Lisa, who had even encouraged Lisa to take Sabrina in, had been to visit Sabrina while she was in custody. During her visit, she told Sabrina that there was no confidentiality for their conversation. Despite being told this, Sabrina couldn't help herself from expressing her biggest concern. Without prompting, Sabrina started rambling about how investigators shouldn't be worried about Kevin. He had nothing to do with the murder, and they didn't need to suspect his involvement. The conversation hadn't even been about him when she blurted this out. Afterwards, the social worker took full advantage of there being no confidentiality and told investigators about this incident. All of this had happened within 5 or 6 months of Lisa's murder. By May of 2013, Sabrina's loyalty to Kevin was gone, whether it was because she realized she wasn't looking at a few years behind bars, then happily ever after with him, or because he hadn't been to see her since her arrest, or whether the separation from him had meant his manipulations had worn off. But Sabrina now wanted to talk. After many discussions with investigators and the prosecutor, in May 2013, Sabrina signed a proffer agreement. The proffer agreement meant that she could tell them all the details of the crime, the planning, who else was involved, the motive, everything, and her statement and testimony would not be used against her in trial. And when I say her trial, there would barely be one. The judge would hear the agreement, hear her plead guilty, and then Sabrina would be sentenced. Wow, that's a bold strategy. Are they not going to tell her the sentencing guidelines before they make her sign this thing? Because she brutally murdered someone. She stabbed them 190 times. You're an adult. She's an adult at this point, right? She's not 17, she's 18. Yeah, she's 18. This seems a risky play. Quoting her, "It was Kevin's idea, and it was talked about after we were having sexual relations, and him and Lisa were having problems in marriage. He wanted to get a divorce, but Haley, which is a 3-year-old daughter of his and her, was in the picture, and he wanted full custody. She would get custody, or it would be shared, and he didn't want that happening. So the alternative was for this to happen." This is what Sabrina told the prosecutor, explaining the motive for the murder of Lisa. She then went on to explain how the physical side of the inappropriate dynamic started. Quoting again, "It started not with sex, but with massages because he was a truck driver and his legs would cramp, so it was inner thigh and then progressively it got into sex." Quote ends. When she was asked if Kevin would tell Sabrina that she couldn't tell anyone about the relationship, Sabrina confirmed that he would all the time. Quote, "Then you'd be taken out of my care and I would lose my foster care license." End quote. In what I believe to be a rare moment of self-awareness, as limited as it may be from Sabrina, she explained that because she had been the happiest when she was with the Knopfel family, and because she felt the most secure with Kevin, she felt that murdering Lisa was the only way to keep that happiness and security. After all, Lisa had become suspicious of Kevin and Sabrina's dynamic, and Lisa was tired of fighting with Sabrina, apparently to the point of wanting Sabrina to leave the home. Well, yeah, but you're an adult now, Kevin's an adult, and as f***ed up as it is, you can go have your weird relationship. And the only issue really is the custody of the daughter, right? So you're basically murdering her so that the person who's manipulating you can have custody over his daughter with the woman that you're murdering. It's extremely f***ed up and very not self-aware. Now with something to build upon, investigators started building a case against Kevin. The first thing they had to do was verify Sabrina's story. Yes, they had her confession, but people make false confessions all the time, and who knows someone's secrets better than their bestie? Yep, the investigators turned to David Strunk and Autumn Pavlik. David Strunk told them about the camping trip, the one where Kevin had shown him pictures of Sabrina that he had paid for to try and kickstart a modeling career, pictures he kept in his wallet. The same camping trip that Kevin had told David how he had changed the type of underwear he wore on Sabrina's suggestion, and the same camping trip Kevin had explained that he and Lisa were fighting and considering divorce, and that Lisa had suspected Kevin and Sabrina were messing around. Autumn was a bit more difficult to get a hold of. A few weeks before the murder had taken place, Autumn had moved to California. That didn't deter the investigators, though, as they traveled to California to speak with Autumn, who cooperated completely. Autumn was open about how she felt about the dynamic between Sabrina and Kevin Knopfel. They were too close, and the jokes between them were disturbingly sexual and targeted towards each other. She told investigators that Sabrina had approached her twice before Autumn had moved to California about hiring a hitman to take Lisa Knopfel out, and Kevin Knopfel knew that Sabrina had asked Autumn about a hitman. Jumping on this nugget of information, the investigators asked Autumn if she would help them catch Kevin out. They wanted her to call him and say that she was worried about the investigators getting her involved because Sabrina had asked her about a hitman. They were hoping that an out-of-the-blue phone call would throw Kevin off and get him to admit involvement. However, when Autumn called him, she only got Kevin's voicemail, so she left him a message saying that she needed to talk to him about something very important. And it worked! To an extent. I mean, wait, hang on, Kevin, go ask a lawyer. Your lawyer will be like, this looks like a trap, matey. Ask your lawyer. Ask the lawyer. He's not just supposed to be there in the room with you, Kevin. Talk to your lawyer, please. I mean, don't, because I want you to go to prison, you sick f***. But, I mean, still. The investigators were there when Kevin called Autumn back and the call was recorded. Autumn explained that she was concerned about being dragged into the investigation if the authorities found out that Sabrina had told him about their conversations about hiring a hitman. All Kevin did was reassure her that she wouldn't be pulled into the investigation. There wasn't much else to the call, and there was nothing that could be used against Kevin. Autumn's cooperation did not end there, though. In July of 2013, Autumn was back in Ohio visiting family, and she added one more visit to her trip, Kevin's house, wearing a wire in hopes of catching him out again. The visit with Kevin took about 3/4 of an hour, and in those roughly 45 minutes, Kevin listened to how Autumn was worried about being pulled into the investigation or arrested because Sabrina had asked her about a hitman, not once, but twice. Yeah, Kevin, who's an adult, or like an older adult, is going to be like, it's not how that works. You didn't commit any crimes. Kevin acted unfazed and like he wasn't involved in the plan to kill Lisa. Acting like he didn't know what Autumn was talking about, he told Autumn that she wouldn't be involved in the investigation and that Sabrina said a lot of damn things. Yes, he actually said that. With Kevin managing to not say anything incriminating, the investigators went back to the drawing board trying to work out where a loose thread was that they could pull on to unravel Kevin's story of not being involved in the murder. Kevin is playing this surprisingly well. It's almost as if he knows she's a trap, because he's just like continuing to deny it and deny it and deny it, and I think that's pretty smart. Probably on the advice of his lawyer, being like, yo, if you get any weird phone calls, if people ask you about stuff, do not say anything. Stick to the fucking story. If you're talking to yourself in front of the mirror, stick to the fucking story. Viewers and listeners of The Casual Criminalist, and Simon, our dear presenter, please take a moment to play a game. Ooh, I like games. I want you to think of that snitch in your life. You know, the one who could easily snitch on you, but you still keep them in your life. Wait, snitch on me for what? Wait, what? Am I supposed to know a stitch? Is that one of those situations where you don't know if you don't know who the snitch is, then that's worse because you don't know what it is? Everyone has a snitch? Does everyone have a snitch? I don't have that many friends. Like, what? They hold a lot of your secrets. They hold your friends and families too. I don't, what secrets? I don't have that many I don't really have crazy secrets. And they could easily snitch on you, and we all know they would if it was gone about in the right way. Hell, we get warned about how we're not safe from them spilling our secret and private affairs regularly. What did you think of? I was talking about your phone. What did you think I was talking about? Who did you think I was talking about? I was very confused. Also, I do think I do think our phones spun us. I know it's like a little bit tinfoil hats, but it is like, people could listen on our phones if they wanted to, couldn't they? It's not like it's not been done before. Wasn't Jeff Bezos' phone hacked? And that's f***ing Jeff Bezos. He's like the richest dude in the world, and somehow his phone still got hacked. It's like, what chance do you think us plebs have? Hello, CIA! I mean, I don't think it's the CIA. I don't think anyone's listening to my phone because no one gives a shit. But like Jeff Bezos, they probably give a shit because he's got loads of money and power and influence. Not being able to get a hold of Kevin's phone, the investigators got their hands on the phone records between Kevin and Sabrina, focusing mainly on communications between the two of them from November 1st to November 16th, 2012. In those 16 days, Sabrina and Kevin exchanged about 1,500 text messages. That's an average of over 90 text messages a day. Holy shit. Except when they narrowed down their search further, there were 78 text messages sent in the 5 or 6 hour time frame before Lisa was attacked and murdered by Sabrina. I don't know about anybody else, but the last time I was messaging someone to the point where a message was being sent every 4 or 5 minutes consistently throughout a 5 or 6 hour time frame was when I had flown into the country to surprise my mum and was updating a mutual friend who was helping me pull off the surprise. Actually, I think we didn't even text as much as Kevin and Sabrina did, but the point is that amount of messaging gives vibes of scheming, plotting, or an air of conspiracy. I somewhat disagree. These people, I don't want to say they're in a relationship. One is a victim, but they're just talking a lot because they're in an early stage of the relationship. I don't know. When you're first into someone, you text them a lot and they text back and you text loads of times a day. It's how things work. And I mean, that's 90 messages is not that much. That's 45 messages each. And if you're at a computer on WhatsApp or iMessage or something, which I guess didn't exist back in 2013, But it's not that crazy. I don't think it's that crazy. Speaking of conspiracy, that made up 2 of the charges that Kevin was indicted of and taken into police custody for on August the 9th, 2013. There were 11 charges against Kevin in total. 6 counts of sexual battery, 3 counts of complicity to commit aggravated murder, and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit aggravated murder. His trial started in May 2014. The prosecution built their case around the testimony of Sabrina, with testimony from David Strunk, Kevin's best friend of 16 years, and Autumn Pavlik, Sabrina's best friend, who had been approached twice about hiring a hitman to take out Lisa Knopfler, backing up Sabrina's testimony. Yeah, Kevin's the sort of dude, he's like, Kevin snitch is David. But also, Kevin has fucked up secrets. Pro tip, if you got fucked up secrets, don't tell people your fucked up secrets, okay? For fuck's sake. Or maybe do, so they'll grass on you to the police. They also played a portion of the 911 call Megan made during the attack. Megan Zanella, that's the younger daughter. The same portion I included at the beginning of today's script. Kevin Knopfler at least showed the humility to be tearful during the playing of the call. The trial went into June. Yeah, I don't think Kevin's a psycho. I think he's a fucking sick bastard. I don't think he's without emotions. I think he's just fucked up. And, I mean, not that that's any excuse. Kevin's a up nasty man who deserves to be in prison, in my opinion. Let's see what the jury say. The trial went on into June, when on June the 11th, 2014, the jury came back from their 9.5-hour deliberations, bringing them a guilty verdict for Kevin on all 18 charges. So yes, the jury also agreed that he deserves to be in prison. Good. On August the 6th, 2014, Kevin Knopfler was sentenced to life in prison, with parole only possible after 30 years. Well deserved. Kevin could only be considered for parole after 2043, when he'd be 73. He didn't speak before the judge read out his sentence, but Megan Zanella's father, Lisa's ex-husband, did. I don't know how, but this man kept his composure as he spoke to the judge. Quote, "There are 2 girls that go through pain every day because of him. He thought he could do some heinous act that would take someone's life away from 2 little girls, and I hope, Judge, that you will give him the maximum sentence, because my daughter and my daughter's sister think about their mother every day." Megan's father then addressed Kevin Knopfler. "And I sure hope that you think about what you did in jail, and I hope you rot in jail for the rest of your life." Yeah. Well deserved. I mean, like, he's got plenty of time to think about what he did in jail. 30 years minimum. And dude, you're gonna have a miserable time in jail because you were bit of the word we can't say on YouTube. I don't think I missed anything, so I have nothing more to add. Sabrina's Zurich's trial also began in August 2014. It was less drawn out than Kevin's, as Sabrina stuck to her agreement with the prosecutors, pleading guilty to a single count of aggravated murder. Tearfully, she read out a prepared statement to the judge. "I stabbed Lisa Knopfler to death with the cooperation and planning of Kevin Knopfler." After that statement, Sabrina restricted herself to simple answers of "yes, sir," and "yes, your honor." So Sabrina was heavily manipulated, but she also murdered someone as an adult. And it wasn't like she was manipulated, but still, you murdered someone. I don't think her sentence, even though she's the one with blood on her hands directly, I don't think it should be as heavy as Kevin's, but I'm gonna guess 20 years, no parole. On September the 29th, 2014, Sabrina was sentenced in accordance with her plea deal to life in prison. Oh shit, with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Oh, she basically got the same deal. Unlike Kevin, Sabrina spoke at the sentencing, reading a prepared statement, and my god, I wish she hadn't. Quote, "I want to say how sorry I am for all those I hurt. Lisa did not deserve what happened to her. I ask forgiveness to be given for me, not for my benefit, but for those who need the healing process to begin." Oh my god, that's not very self-aware, is it? "I can't explain how much remorse I have and how much sadness I deal with." Oh my god, stop making it about you. Fucking cringe, dude. And I'm just going to put my opinion here because I'd like to know how many people agree with me. I wish she hadn't spoken at her sentencing because of that comment about forgiving her so the healing could start. Yeah, and also I have a problem with how much sadness I deal with. Oh, boo-hoo! You deal with sadness because you murdered someone. Guess what? Don't fucking murder people then. Yes, get out with that. It's giving Jodi Arias-style manipulation. I don't know who that is. Pretty much any sympathy I had for Sabrina took a roly-poly down Mount Everest, and I stand 10 toes down when I say that you don't need to forgive anyone to heal. You see, I did have a bit of sympathy for Sabrina, but the more I researched the case, the less I had. And I believe Judge Richard Collins said it best when he spoke at Sabrina's sentencing, quote, "I don't think there was any question she was manipulated and used by the co-defendant. Aggravated murder is aggravated murder, but this was not a single violent act," end quote. And he's right, because there were 178 wounds to Lisa Knothel, some of which were from fighting back. She was screaming for help and begging the defendant to stop. She did not die immediately. I cannot imagine the nature of terror and fear. I genuinely hope that Megan Zaniello and Hayley Knothel know that if they don't want to forgive Sabrina Zunich or Kevin Knothel for what they did, that's perfectly fine. If they want to, also perfectly fine. It's their choice, not something they have to do because Sabrina asked for it. At the end of the day, it's what Megan and Hayley want and need that matters. Lisa did nothing to deserve such a betrayal, which was simply trying to provide the best life she could for her girls, including Sabrina, which makes Lisa's death all the more tragic. I hope Megan and Hayley are doing well in their lives. Dismembered appendices. Kevin Knothel had appealed his conviction multiple times, and every appeal has been denied. Yay! I do like it when they appeal. It's like, nah, actually, we changed our minds. Death for you! Death! This brings me joy because I do believe he is trash and should never be allowed out of prison. Agreed! There was an HLN interview done with Megan Zanella in which she talked about how, a month before the murder, Sabrina Zunich had threatened her with a knife one night. I don't know how to place this in the script, so I thought I'd just place it here. And finally, on the topic of interviews, Sabrina has done an episode of her own on Snapped Behind Bars. Having heard her statement of sentencing, I couldn't justify the new subscription to watch it because I couldn't care less about what she has to say in 2020 or 2021. Me neither. So, yeah, Kevin, and that's it. Thanks for being here. See you next time.